Thank you very much for having me. Picture this. You are 2/3 of the way through a bike ride around the world. It's dusk time somewhere in western Spain. You stop for dinner at a very small village. You get this weird feeling in your gut after chatting to some locals. But you're on a mission, so you have to keep going. So you just get back on the open road. It's you, your bike, and that white light that you can see in front of you. Shortly after, you hear a motorcycle revving behind you. There are two people on this motorcycle. They're saying something to you. You can't quite hear it. You don't understand the language. You just choose to ignore it. They keep leapfrogging you. So they're overtaking you, stopping, waiting for you to catch up, and then that keeps going on. The next thing you know, you're pushed off the bike. You're held at knife point, and you see that things are being taken from your bike. It's a very uncomfortable experience. The next thing you know, you're pushed down the side of the road, your bike is thrown on top of you, and you hit your head. You've hit your head really hard. You don't remember where you are. You don't remember why you're out here. You probably don't even remember if you're there with someone and which direction of the road you were supposed to follow. Fast forward a few hours later, and you come across some extremely kind strangers who help you. You end up in a hospital, and you find out that you were not only mugged at knife point, but you're suffering with a really heavy concussion. At this point, you have to decide, do I stop? Do I give up? Or do I keep going and finish what I've started? This is exactly what happened back in 2018, around October 2018. And I was faced with this decision. So what does it take to ride your bike around the world? Next slide, please. So I tried to make this easy. So imagine riding from Lucknow to Delhi. I'm going to take that distance to be roughly 500 kilometers. In order to circumnavigate the globe, according to the Guinness World Record rules, you have to cycle a minimum of 29,000 kilometers. You have to cross two antipodal points, which are 2 points on the exact opposite ends of the Earth. And you have to start and finish at the same place, and your whole ride has to be unidirectional. And I know it sounds quite straightforward when you follow these set of rules, but things like that are hardly ever so. The physical effort of keeping on going, even when you're wrecked, is one of the factors to consider. Another one is knowing that you're going to spend uninterrupted hours with yourself, whether you like it or not, whether that's what you want to do. A lot of things will happen along the way. Your bike will break down. Your card may or may not work. The person at the cafe that you come across will be really rude to you. They'll rub you the wrong way. The road quality won't be consistent, totally depends on where you are. The vehicles will pass you way too close for comfort. And especially in this day and age, people will say things on the internet that are completely outrageous, some of them about you, that you can do nothing about. There will be days when riding your bike is the last thing that you'll want to do, and there will be chaos. The only way out of this chaos is to go through. But there is a flip side to this. You'll be greeted with smiles. You will ride your bike for such a long time through so many countries and continents that everywhere will feel like home. That random woman that emerged out of the car when you had a creepy experience with a man and you had to stop a car, she will give you the warmest hug. You will feel loved by the whole world by just being out there in your rawest form. You'll spend so much time with yourself and get to know yourself so well that you will have the conviction to get through just about any challenge in life. Every tailwind will feel like the universe's personal way of cheering you on. And you'll notice the world a lot. You'll realize that nature does not hold anything against you. How you deal with everything will either make this the most miserable experience in the world, or it'll be a journey that you can remember forever. So I got started in endurance cycling off the back of a ride in the Indian Himalayas. I was 17 at the time when I did this ride. Then about 5 days after I turned 18, I moved to the UK to study sports management. This was back in September 2016-ish. When I moved there, I didn't know anybody, and I was really lonely, like really lonely. I didn't quite know what to do with myself, you know. And riding my bike became that escape. It became that way to find my freedom. It became my way to connect with a country where I genuinely did not know anyone. In fact, some of my best friends now are people that I met at the cycling club back in university. Then one day, I signed up for a proper long-distance cycling event. It was called London, Edinburgh, London, by the way. I quite quickly realized that I didn't know anything about how to prepare for this event. I'd heard so much about it, I'd read so much about it, I knew people who had done it. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't even know if I could do it. So of course, I planned an adventure to see what could happen. Now, at this point, I lived in Bournemouth, which is south coast of England, and my plan was to go from Bournemouth to London and back. That would be a journey of around 400 kilometers. As I set off, my bike broke down and I had no idea how to fix it. I was in the middle of nowhere. It was like a tiny village, and just outside that, my bike broke down. I knocked on the nearest door that I could see. I found the nearest house, walked to there and knocked their door. A really lovely lady welcomed me in. She gave me a cup of tea. We had a chat. She asked me where I was going, and for some reason that I still don't understand, I said John O'Groats. John O'Groats is the other end of mainland UK, the northernmost end. And I had now almost committed myself to go from the south coast of the UK to the northernmost, and it would be a ride of 1,600 kilometers, 4 times the amount of distance that I was planning to do originally. I always knew I would do something like this, but I never knew that my first solo unsupported that sort of ride would be across the UK. Now, on this ride, I knocked on random people's doors, hoping that someone would welcome me in and have me over, you know, let me stay. I slept in the bus shelters. I had no sleeping gear with me. I wore every single bit of clothing I had. But here's the one thing that I really kind of remember from this ride. There were 2 conflicting things going through my head. There was a part of me which was like, nobody knows where I am, the ultimate freedom. I can do anything I want. Nobody cares that I'm here. Then there was this other part of me which was like, nobody knows where I am. Something could go wrong and no one would know. I could die out here, no one would know. My parents are in another country, they're still in India, and like they wouldn't know. I felt really lonely. And in that loneliness, I turned to my Kindle for companionship. I was reading a book written by the first woman to circumnavigate the globe on her bicycle. Her name is Juliana Buren. And her determination, her stories, her courage, her confidence, it all just drew me in. I was so inspired. I was 18 at this point, and I thought to myself, well, next year I'll be 19. I'll be grown up enough. Maybe I can ride my bike around the world. Maybe I can break this record. It's just riding your bike, right? Well, famous last words. This dream of mine officially kicked off when I finally reached John O'Groats. I called my parents and I told them my intentions of, you know, being a 19-year-old grown-up and riding my bike around the world. This first ride around the world started and finished in Australia, in Perth, and it took me across Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Iceland, Portugal, Spain, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Russia, India, and then I flew back to Australia where I'd started. I was 19 when I began this ride. I was 20 when I finished. In fact, I celebrated my 20th birthday at my halfway point, I remember. And some prominent highlights involved riding across Nullarbor Desert in Australia for the very first time. the place that I describe as genuinely being in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, like it's wild. I rode through some absolutely insane wildfires in Canada. I got chased by a bear also in Canada. I got mugged at Spain at knife point. I rode across Russia in winter. That wasn't planned. This ride not only traumatized me, but it also kind of built me back up brick by brick. It was the first time in my entire life where I had to really, I guess, deal with fear by myself, and there was no one to tell me how or show me how to do that. It was also the first time where I could choose to deal with challenges in my own way when nobody's watching, because no one's there to sort of correct you or tell you that you're doing it wrong. So it was the very first time doing it. But here's what didn't happen. I was out there to break a speed record. I did not get the speed record. And I know I should have been heartbroken by it, which I was at the time, very much so. But I was also relieved because now I would get a chance to do this big ride my way. Now, the problem was I didn't know what my way was. I did have the time to find out now because I had, I wasn't on a speed record anymore, I guess. So this meant that I could spend some time with my friend's family in Finland, or I could go to the Arctic and do a winter survival course because I was going slow enough to have to ride in the Russian winter. And I learned that we don't really fail at things. We keep changing and reframing what our metric of success is. And we do this often enough, and we are on track to lead a more joyful and, I guess, purposeful life. Fast forward 6 years, I was 25, and I planned to do this all over again. Similar plan, I wanted to be the fastest woman to ride my bike around the world. I would go solo, unsupported, and all that. Same rules, 29,000 kilometers, antipodal points, you know the drill. The first step of this whole thing was that doing anything that involves a lot of traveling with an Indian passport is not very straightforward. But in my head, I wanted to find places which weren't just hassle-free, but which weren't visa-free, but definitely hassle-free, which meant like with my UK residency, if I could get visa on arrival instead of stamped visa, that was a go. And then I planned my route. Then there was the harder part of this whole thing, which was to train for it. The bar was set high for round the world record. And I had learned with experience that no matter if you go slow or fast on this big ride, it is going to be physically taxing. And the harder I train now, the easier, the more manageable, I guess. It's never going to be easy, but it would be more manageable when I'm actually out there. It would be more enjoyable when I'm actually out there. And my progression was slow and quite gradual, but I realized that it made me really happy to be in that process of training, to see that I had this big picture goal and I'm building up to it. That was, I really enjoyed that part. Then came the really annoying part of funding this ride. And I reached out to people and organizations that I knew of. And this was a period of being rejected over and over again. And when these no's come from people that you know, or people that, know you to some level on a personal level, that hits you hard. So I, again, had to turn to my training for escape and just remember that as long as I'm physically capable of riding my bike around the world and make this happen, nothing else matters. That's all I have to focus on. Just be able, physically capable to actually ride. So then route was planned, funding was secured, and training was, happening. I chose to start 8th of July on the east coast of India at INS Chilka. This is where I would return 9 months later. So along the way, a lot of things happened. I got heat exhaustion. I got food poisoning. I rode across 4 deserts in many different countries. I rode across the Andes. I got hit by a car in Australia on the 90-mile straight road where I had a gash so big that needed stitches. I didn't have access to butterfly stitches or a medical center, so the best bet was to put some super glue on it and put some duct tape on top of it. That hurt, but it worked. Then I got tooth infection off the back of that, which was very uncomfortable. I celebrated my 26th birthday at a place that felt so much like home. It was Queenstown in New Zealand. I got attacked by what felt like a million magpies. What was it? Yeah, I saw penguins also in New Zealand, funnily enough. I got a chance to ride with some really good friends when I was in, their part of the world. And most of all, I met some really, really, really kind people who owed me nothing but went out of their way to help me out when I needed something. My route this time went across Mongolia, Australia, New Zealand, Peru, Portugal, Spain, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Sweden, Finland, Oman, and then a very long ride across India right at the end. Now, technically speaking, I failed at the same goal twice. Both of the times I wanted to do this big ride around the world, be the fastest woman to do it, return within 4 months, and obviously that didn't happen. But that doesn't matter, and I kind of want to tell you why. We all have really big dreams in life, and the path to reach them is never quite linear. We stumble, we fall, we fail, and that's pretty much the only guarantee amongst all these things. Now, there are 5 prominent stages of riding my bike around the world that I remember from both of these rides. They are fear, low self-esteem, moments of low self-esteem, really good sense of achievement, happiness, and chaos. For every moment of doubt and low self-esteem, there were so many other moments where I felt that incredible sense of achievement. For every moment where fear had entered the room, there were so many moments where I remember feeling the happiest that I ever have. And riding my bike felt like the most obvious thing to do. The only constant throughout was chaos. And I feel like the ability to move through this chaos patiently and see big challenges as kind of, or maybe small challenges that you come along the way, as only minor inconveniences, that can make all the difference with how you perceive the journey that you're on. It also reminded me constantly that riding your bike around the world is so much more than just cycling. It's so much more than keeping on cycling day in, day out for multiple months on the end. And it's more about this journey that you're on and making every single day count. When I talk to people about having ridden my bike around the world, I am hardly asked about why I failed at achieving this record that I wanted to go for. People want to know the places I've been to, the people I met, the food I ate. They want to know what my days looked like when I was riding my bike every day. They want to know my moments of joy. They want to know if I ever just wanted to give up. They wanted to know how I felt every single day when I was out there. So the journey matters so much more than the actual destination. And here's what I would like for you to think about. Think about a big goal that you've got over the next 3 or 4 years. Think of that as your personal round the world ride, maybe. Now, you've got a long way to go, and along the way there will be chaos, there'll be carnage, there'll be things that are way out of your control. You'll experience the highest of the highs and lowest of the lows, and it'll all be gone just as quickly as it came. It'll be all very, momentary. And those 3 years will pass in no time. So, do you just want to get there, get to the finish line as quickly as you possibly can, wish the time away, and then sort of wonder how those years, how that time passed? Or do we want to, be a bit of a main character in our own lives and the story that we're writing and remember the process of getting there? The one thing that I've learned through both of these journeys and through all of the expeditions that I've done So through the detours, the storms, the tears, the laughter, and all the self-discovery, then it's this. You don't find meaning by crossing an arbitrary finish line, or there's no physical sort of destination that you find meaning through. You create this meaning by moving through everything that leads you to this destination, to this finish line. That's the process that we honor. Thank you for having me.